War teaches a man many things: discipline, endurance, the art of patience. It breaks you down and rebuilds you into something stronger, something unshakable. But no amount of training prepares you for the war waiting at home. I had been deployed for 6 months. 6 months of sandstorms, gunfire, and the constant hum of adrenaline running through my veins. 6 months of counting down the days until I could return to my wife, Sarah, the woman I married with every intention of keeping my vows until the day I died. I was a soldier, but more than that, I was a husband. And that meant something to me. When I finally stepped off that plane onto American soil, I thought I was walking toward safety, toward peace. I had no idea that I was stepping into the most brutal battle of my life. The first sign was subtle, the kind of thing you'd miss if you weren't trained to notice the smallest details. Sarah wasn't waiting at the airport. She always waited. Every time. The last time I came home, she had sprinted into my arms before I even had time to process I was back. But this time, there was only silence. I brushed it off. Maybe she got caught up at work. Maybe she wanted to surprise me at home. But as I took a taxi back to our house, a pit formed in my stomach. Something was wrong. The next sign? Her car wasn't in the driveway. I stepped inside, expecting the warmth of home, expecting the scent of her perfume lingering in the air. Instead, I was greeted by an empty house and an eerie silence that felt colder than any battlefield I had ever stepped onto. I dropped my duffel bag by the door and called her. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. My pulse quickened, my instincts kicking in. I had faced ambushes, dodged bullets, survived the worst humanity had to offer. But nothing sent fear through me like the uncertainty of what I was about to uncover. I walked out of that bar with my heart pounding, my fists clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. Rage was a living thing inside me, clawing to be set free. But I swallowed it down. I couldn't afford to lose control. Not yet. Driving back home, I forced myself to think like a soldier. Recklessness would get me nowhere. If I wanted to win this war, I had to plan my attack. My mind raced with questions. How long had this been going on? Had she ever loved me at all? And my brother, how could he betray me like this? By the time I reached the house, my thoughts had turned cold, calculated. I wasn't going to confront them yet. First, I needed proof. Solid, undeniable proof that would ensure they wouldn't just feel my wrath, they'd pay for it. I spent the next few days setting up my strategy. I installed hidden cameras around the house, making sure to cover every angle where Sarah might bring him. I placed a voice recorder in the bedroom, in the living room, anywhere she might think she was safe. I knew the patterns of an affair. They'd think they were being careful, but cheaters always got comfortable. And when they did, I'd be ready. Then I dug deeper. I checked our bank statements, looking for anything suspicious. And there it was: hotel charges, expensive dinners, transactions in places I had never been. The evidence was piling up, and with every piece, my resolve hardened. One evening, Sarah finally came home. She acted normal, like nothing had changed. But I saw it now, the way she avoided my eyes, how her phone was always face down, the forced smile when I kissed her cheek. I played along, pretending to be the clueless husband. She had no idea that her lies were unraveling right in front of her. The final straw came when I retrieved the footage from one of the cameras. My stomach twisted as I watched her sneak my brother into our home, into our bed. The anger I had buried threatened to consume me, but I exhaled slowly, reminding myself, not yet. I wasn't just going to expose them. I was going to destroy them. And they wouldn't see it coming. With the evidence I had gathered, I was ready to move to the next phase of my plan. But before I struck, I needed to make sure they were fully comfortable in their deception. I wanted them to believe they had won before I tore their world apart. I started playing my role even better, acting clueless, pretending to be the same devoted husband who still believed in his wife. I showered Sarah with attention, asked about her day, even cooked dinner. She had no idea that every sweet gesture was just another step toward her downfall. At the same time, I worked in the background. I met with a lawyer, started preparing the legal side of my revenge. I wanted everything ironclad, no loopholes, no escape for her. I looked into our assets, our home, the money she had been siphoning off. She thought she was clever, but she had underestimated the man she had betrayed. Then I turned to my brother. I needed to know his angle. Was he just another liar, or did he have an endgame? I started tracking his moves, watching his behavior, reading his messages whenever Sarah carelessly left her phone unattended. The more I learned, the more I realized, this wasn't just a fling. They had been planning something bigger. They wanted to take everything from me. And that's when I knew, I wasn't just going to expose them. I was going to make them beg for mercy. Now that I had a full grasp of their plans, I set my own in motion. I reached out to an old friend, someone with expertise in uncovering financial fraud. If Sarah had been siphoning money, I needed solid proof. Within days, I had transaction records tracing funds to a hidden account. She wasn't just cheating, she was preparing to leave me with nothing. It was time to strike. But first, I had to let them believe they had already won. A soldier relies on intelligence. On facts. And so, I began my quiet investigation. It started with her social media, locked down tighter than a classified military file. That was new. Then, our joint bank account. The balance was significantly lower than it should have been. My chest tightened. Every detail I uncovered felt like another bullet to the gut. I needed to breathe. To think. I left the house, got into my truck, and drove aimlessly through town, hoping for clarity. That's when I saw it. Sarah's car. Parked outside a bar on the edge of town. I pulled into the lot, heart pounding, mind racing. I had no plan, no strategy, just an overwhelming need to understand. I stepped inside, scanning the room, and then I saw her. I started moving my own money into an account she couldn't touch, securing my assets before she could drain them further. At the same time, I let her keep spending, oblivious to the trap closing in around her. The moment she thought she had outplayed me would be the moment I crushed her world. I kept up the act, playing the doting husband, pretending to be blind to the deception unfolding right in front of me. Every fake smile she gave, every night she claimed to be working late, only fueled my resolve. The more comfortable she felt, the more reckless she became. And reckless people make mistakes. One night, as she lay asleep beside me, I took her phone. Her password hadn't changed. She never thought I would check. I scrolled through the messages between her and my brother, reading their sickening conversations about a future without me. They laughed at me, mocked me, made plans to take the house, the money, everything. My grip tightened around the phone, but I forced myself to stay calm. Not yet. The next day, I met with my lawyer again, finalizing the legal steps that would secure my position. I filed to freeze joint accounts and transferred the house title solely into my name. Sarah had tried to siphon funds, but I had been one step ahead. By the time she realized what was happening, it would be too late. Then, I set up the final piece of my revenge. I gathered every message, every transaction, and all the footage I had collected. It was time to expose them both. Not just to each other, but to the world. I planned it carefully. A family gathering, a birthday party for our father. Everyone would be there. My parents. Her parents. Friends. People who believed in the illusion of our perfect marriage. And in that moment, surrounded by those who mattered most, I would shatter the facade. Sarah and my brother thought they had won. But they were about to realize that the real battle had just begun. The day of the party arrived. I could feel the tension in my chest, but I remained calm. Years of discipline and combat training had taught me to control my emotions, to move with precision. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity. Sarah dressed up, looking radiant, oblivious to the storm about to hit her. My brother, ever the snake, greeted me with a firm handshake, as if we were still family. I shook his hand, forcing a smile, knowing full well that within the next hour, everything he thought he had gained would be stripped away. The party was in full swing, laughter and music filling the air. I let them enjoy it. Let them believe, for just a little longer, that they were safe. Then, when the time was right, I stood up, tapping my glass for attention. The room quieted, eyes turned toward me. Sarah smiled, thinking I was about to make a toast in her honor. She couldn't have been more wrong. I took a deep breath and began. I want to take a moment to appreciate family. The people we trust, the people we rely on. Marriage is built on trust, just like brotherhood. But trust can be broken. And sometimes the ones we trust the most are the ones who betray us. Sarah's smile faltered. My brother shifted uncomfortably. The murmurs started, curiosity spreading through the room. That's when I pulled out my phone, connected it to the TV screen behind me, and pressed play. The room fell into stunned silence as the first video played, Sarah and my brother together in our home, whispering their plans, laughing at my supposed ignorance. Then came the bank statements, the messages, the proof of their deceit. Gasps echoed through the room. Sarah turned pale, my brother stood frozen, his face draining of all color. My father's expression darkened. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Sarah's parents looked horrified, their daughter exposed for what she truly was. The perfect wife, the devoted woman, reduced to nothing more than a liar and a cheat. Sarah stumbled forward, grabbing my arm. Please, we can talk about this. I pulled away, my voice steady. There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. Now you can live with it. My brother tried to speak, but I silenced him with a single look. You were my brother. And you threw it away for this? You disgust me. With that, I walked away, leaving them to face the shame and judgment of everyone they had fooled. But this was just the beginning. The legal battle would come next, and I had made sure they would walk away with nothing. They had thought they were playing me. But I was always 10 steps ahead. And in the end I won. The fallout from the party was immediate. The shame, the whispers, the judgment, it crushed them like a tidal wave. Sarah's parents were furious, disowning her on the spot. My mother refused to even look at my brother. The weight of their betrayal hung heavy in the air, and I drank it in, knowing it was only the beginning of their downfall. Sarah tried to call me that night. I let it ring. She sent texts, begging for a conversation, for a chance to explain. I left her on read. The time for explanations had passed. Instead, I focused on the next stage of my plan, the divorce. I met with my lawyer the next morning, armed with all the evidence I had gathered. Every bank statement, every stolen dollar, every instance of infidelity was laid out meticulously. She wouldn't just lose me, she would lose everything. When Sarah finally received the divorce papers, she showed up at the house in tears. Please, we can fix this, she sobbed. We can start over. I stared at her unmoved. You didn't cry when you were laughing behind my back. You didn't beg when you were making plans to take everything from me. Why should I believe you now? She had no answer. Because there was none. As for my brother, he had lost more than just family. His reputation was in shambles. His job gone. His friends turned against him. He had gambled and lost everything. And I felt nothing for him. No pity. No sympathy. He had chosen his path, and now he had to walk it alone. The divorce dragged on for weeks, but my preparation ensured there was no room for her to fight back. She got nothing. No house. No money. Nothing but the consequences of her own actions. And when it was finally over, when the ink was dry and her last desperate attempts to hold on to me failed, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. Sarah and my brother had thought they could betray me and walk away unscathed. But in the end, they were the ones left with nothing. And I walked away victorious. In the weeks that followed, I rebuilt my life from the ground up. The house was mine, but I didn't want to stay there. Too many ghosts, too many memories that felt tainted. So I sold it. Made a profit. Started fresh somewhere new, somewhere untouched by their betrayal. Sarah, on the other hand, had nothing. She tried to reach out to old friends, but most of them had turned their backs on her. The whispers followed her everywhere. The woman who tried to cheat her husband out of everything ended up with nothing. My brother's fate was even worse. He lost his job after his affair became public knowledge. Turns out, his boss had a zero-tolerance policy for that kind of behavior. With no money, no home, and no support system, he was left scrambling. And I didn't care. I focused on myself. I went to therapy, worked through the anger, the betrayal, the pain. I reconnected with old friends, people I had lost touch with while drowning in a marriage that had been nothing but a lie. For the first time in years, I felt alive. Then, one day, I got a message. From Sarah. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I just want to say I'm sorry. I stared at the screen for a long time before typing back a simple response. I don't hate you. But I will never forgive you. And I will never forget. I hit send, then deleted her number. That was the last time I ever spoke to her. Some battles leave scars. Some wars change you forever. But in the end I survived. I won. And that was all that mattered. Moving on wasn't easy, but every day, it got better. I threw myself into new hobbies, focused on my career, and learned to enjoy life on my own terms. I traveled, met new people, and slowly rebuilt the trust that had been shattered. I had once believed that my marriage was unbreakable, that my family bond was unshakable. But life had proven otherwise. And instead of letting it destroy me, I let it mold me into something stronger. One evening, I sat by the ocean, watching the sun dip below the horizon. It was peaceful. No more anger, no more resentment, just clarity. I had walked through hell and come out the other side. And for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to think about the future. Not with regret. Not with bitterness. But with hope. Years passed, and the pain of betrayal faded into nothing more than a distant memory. I built a new life, one free of deception and lies. My career thrived, my friendships deepened, and I even found love again, not the naive, blind love I had once given so freely, but something real, something earned. Sarah and my brother became ghosts of the past. Occasionally, I would hear about them through mutual acquaintances. She struggled, bouncing from relationship to relationship, never finding stability. My brother never regained his footing, forever haunted by his choices. It wasn't my concern. Their downfall had been of their own making. One day, I stood at my wedding, my real wedding. The kind built on honesty, trust, and respect. As I looked into the eyes of the woman beside me, I felt nothing but gratitude. For the lessons. For the pain. For the strength I had gained through survival. Because in the end, they didn't break me. They made me unstoppable.